Greetings and salutations, and thank you for clicking on this video. Today I'm going to show you how to schedule periodic tasks for your computer to perform automatically using a system called Anacron. And it's up and running and doing its thing already on your Linux machine. You just have to learn how to take advantage of it. What I'm going to show you today will apply to Ubuntu. Any currently supported version of Ubuntu works this way. I even looked in Ubuntu 17.04, which will be coming out in a couple of days, and the Anacron system is still intact and up and running. When you want to schedule a periodic task on your computer, there's a couple of options that you can use for that. One of them would be Cron. We've covered that in past videos. Then, of course, if your system runs systemd, systemd can also be set up to run tasks at a particular time. But this is just built into Debian and Ubuntu. It's there, it runs, and once you set this up, you should probably never have to worry about it again. It's just going to go off and do it. Obviously, we're going to be working in a terminal today, and so this means that this video is for more advanced users. But if you are a newbie, I encourage you to go on and watch this, because I'm not going to be showing anything too difficult, and you really can't mess up the system by adding things to Anacron. Either it's going to work or it isn't, and you may want to be bold and daring, and maybe you're learning how to write simple shell scripts, and you want to give this a shot. So do stick around even if you are new to the Linux world. So first off, before we get into it, let's talk about the difference between Anacron and Cron. Like I said, I've covered Cron in past videos, and Cron is a program that's been around for a long time, and what it lets you do is to schedule a task to run at a particular time on your computer. So for instance, you can use Cron to schedule a task to run Thursdays at noon. And when Thursday comes around and it's noon, Cron will go, okay, it's time to do this, and it will take off and do it. The problem with Cron is it goes by the clock. If the computer is not up and running at that moment, you don't have it booted up, maybe you have a laptop and it's asleep in your bag and you're going from one place to the next, Cron's not going to run. And if you wake the computer up or boot the computer up at 1 o'clock, let's say, the machine is not going to go and say, oh, I should have done that, and run that process. It's going to wait until next Thursday at noon. And if the machine's down then it will skip it. So it goes by the clock. Anacron doesn't go necessarily by the clock. It goes by the last time that a task was run. So it will run it the first time it sees it, and then it will put a timestamp on it. And then every time the machine is booted up, or at 7:30 in the morning, if the machine is awake and up and running at 7:30, Anacron runs, it will go and look at its list of jobs and see what it has to do. So it goes by purely when the last time this thing was run is, and that's how it does it. So you're more assured of things getting done because all you really have to do is turn the computer on and you're good to go. So let's take a look around inside the system here, and I'll show you a little bit about how this works. So I'm going to use a fancy command called pushd, and I'm going to change my directory to etc. No, I said etc. No R in there. So we've jumped over there, and now we are going to look for a file called Anacron tab. And those of you who are used to how Cron works know about cron tabs. Well, this is sort of like the cron tab file, but this just initiates the Anacron process. So this is actually started by Cron, and it goes and it runs the Anacron tab, and then what happens next is that it goes and it figures out what it has to do by time. So the first thing that it's going to look at is daily. It's going to look for its daily tasks, and this will happen 5 minutes after the Anacron process is started. And that happens at boot time because there's a service that runs in the background that takes care of this. So your computer will boot up, and then 5 minutes later it's going to see if there's anything that it needs to do daily. The next one that it's going to look at 10 minutes after it's booted up is the Cron Weekly stuff. So what do you want to do that needs to be done weekly? And so on. We get down to monthly. So 15 minutes after the machine is booted up, it does Cron Monthly. And it goes through, and anything that it's time to run that needs to be run, it'll take care of. So even if the machine has been turned off for a month, you got on an airplane and flew out of the country for that period of time, when you turn it on, anything that it needs to do, it's just going to take care of it. And it all happens in the background. And it all happens asynchronously. That's what I was trying to say. Asynchronously, which means that each little job is started in its own process, and it all takes care of itself, and you don't even know what's going on. Now, unlike Cron, where we create a cron tab and we put our commands in the cron tab, we are not going to edit the Anacron tab. As a matter of fact, don't touch this. I'm just showing you this to show you where the process starts. And you'll notice it does some interesting things up here. First of all, it sets an environment for this Anacron process to run in. And the shell is not bash. It's sh, which is the old Bourne shell. And that's important because we need to write scripts that will run properly in the sh shell. And there are a few little variables and commands and arguments that you can put in a bash script that don't work in sh. So watch out for those. The examples I'm going to be showing you today are actually really simple, and you're not going to run into anything that bash or sh is not going to be able to deal with. But if you're writing more complicated scripts, that's something you want to keep in mind. So make sure that they're sh compatible. Also, it sets a path. So the commands that we are going to use or reference anywhere need to be in here. And then it's saying that the home is going to be root and the log name is root. So all of this runs as root, and it runs in its own environment. So if you have any special variables set up in your bash environment, you've modified your bash RC, they're not going to apply. This is run as the root user, and it's a very lightweight environment. You notice that. So there's no aliases or nothing. You're going to have to be able to, any command that you put into any one of these scripts is going to have to work in this environment. But like I said, most folks are going to put really simple stuff in there. No big deal. So where are all of these jobs? Where are they? Well, what we're going to do is we're going to list everything in Etsy that has cron in it, and this will show us where everything is. So now you see, we can ignore cron D up here, but we have Cron Daily. So this is a directory, and then there's a bunch of stuff in here. These are all actually little scripts that have little jobs for Anacron to do on a daily basis. So one that you might notice here is Google Chrome. Okay, Google Chrome right there. Every day it's going to go out and make sure that its security keys are what they should be. And then we have one called DPKG, and we have ManDB over here, which is a little utility that just makes sure that the manual page database is up to date. And then we have Cron Hourly, which is not set up in the Anacron tab. If you were going to do something hourly anyway, I wouldn't use this service. I'd use Cron itself. That'll be just fine for that. But for anything that's going to be run daily or weekly, you can throw it in here. We don't have anything set up for monthly, but you do see we have this weird looking script that says Anacron. I'll tell you more about what that does in just a few moments. And then we have Cron Weekly. So let's jump down to Cron Weekly and take a look at what we've got in here. We'll jump into the directory. And let's go ahead and do that again. There we go, working at the top of the screen. So you see we have some little files in here, and they are executable, and they're little scripts is what they are. And when you write a script to run in Anacron, it has to be done with some stuff kept in mind, some very important points. First of all, anything you put in here is going to have to be completely autonomous. It's going to have to work automatically because when this fires off, there is no indication that the system is doing this. This happens way down in the deepest parts of the system. So we want to make sure that everything can take care of itself. And let's just take a look at one of these scripts and we'll get an idea of what goes on here. So let's look at this script called fstrim. If you have a solid state drive on your computer, an SSD, about once a week you want to run the trim command on it. That does wear leveling and kind of spreads everything out so that the drive will last longer. It does a bunch of things, and you want it to do it automatically. Now in Ubuntu, that is taken care of automatically. This is Linux Mint 17.3 I'm doing this video on, so you see we have this big comment here that says if you don't have an Intel or a Samsung SSD, then you'll need to edit this and you'll need to put this little no model check down here. If you're running anything past Ubuntu 14.04 and you have an SSD that's made by somebody else other than Intel or Samsung, you don't got to worry about this. All this is gone. That whole model check thing was removed after that, but it's here anyway. And we only have two actual commands that run in this script. The first one up here is set E. Now what that command does is it instructs the Bourne shell that if anything is not right about this script, if there's an error somewhere, do not continue running it. Stop, quit, don't. So that is just a little safety precaution. We really don't want this thing to spin up a process in the background and then hang or cause damage to the system. So if anything's not right, it'll just ignore it and move on. And then the actual command is down here, and they have it running in a subshell. That's what this exec does. You don't really need that part of it, but fstrim all, what that does is it just goes out, looks for SSDs, and if they're on the system, it runs the trim command. That's all fstrim-all does, and that's how simple this can get. Or these can be even a little bit more complicated. Let's look at another one here real quick because, well, let's look at this one here, this mandb, because that's got some interesting stuff in it. I was looking at this earlier. All right, so you see now we have some if statements, and these can get a little bit complicated, but they all start with set E, and up here at the shebang, it's running in sh, not bash. So those are things we're going to have to keep in mind. Now you may notice that there is, let me just do this one more time. In every one of these that's actually listed in the Anacron tab, we have this script that starts with 0. That's your timestamp right there, and that helps the system keep up with when all of these different jobs were run. So that script has to be in here. It has to stay there. Don't mess with it. Leave it alone, or the system's not going to work properly. So there you go. All right, so what if we want to write a script and add it in here? How do we do it? Where do we start? Let's use popd to get back over to the work directory where we started. And then we'll just go ahead and clear that out. And let me show you a couple of scripts that I wrote for an example here. I started doing this video because a fella sent me an email. I got it this morning, and he said he wanted to set the system up to run backups automatically in the background. And I went through and explained to him how Anacron worked, and so therefore that's why I'm doing the video, because I figured this time to talk about this. And so I wrote an example backup script for him, and we're going to take a look at that right now. So I'm going to go ahead and do this in Nano, and the name of the script is backup script. All right. So it starts out with the shebang sh, and then we have the set E, which basically says that if any of this stuff isn't right here, if it doesn't find the drive or there's some kind of error, just dump it and get out. And we're using the rsync command, and rsync A, which means it'll archive, it'll delete stuff that has been deleted in the backup, it'll delete things that were deleted in the source. In our case, the source is home, and then we have just a dummy thing here, just the full path to your backup drive. And this part might be familiar if you've used rsync before. That's all makes perfect sense. But you notice I didn't use the V option, which makes it verbose, because we don't want any verbiage at all to come out of any command that we put in one of these scripts. Nothing. We want them to be dead silent. They have to run quietly. And that's this part at the end, this little bit of code right here at the very end. What this does is it takes any output that would ordinarily appear on the screen in your terminal when this runs, and it dumps it into dev null. Dev null is the bit bucket. It is a virtual file that is on any Unix or Linux system, and if you direct any output to that file, it just goes poof. The system just throws it away. And that's exactly what we want it to do. The reason why is because any output that is generated by a command running in Cron or running in Anacron is put into an email and emailed to the user. And I don't mean like your Gmail or your Yahoo. We're talking about system mail, which every Linux system has a self-contained mail system, and that goes back to the days when your average Linux, or rather Unix computer, Linux is a work-alike of Unix, so it carries a lot of the same stuff over with it. We're talking back in the days when we had big mini computers and mainframes, and you could have tens, hundreds, maybe even thousands of users. So there's actually an email system within Linux. Well, we don't use that anymore. Nobody reads system mail, so you don't want the spool filling up in the var directory with a whole bunch of mail that you don't even know is there. So when you write these scripts, make sure that you stick this little piece of code at the end here, and that will dump everything into the dev null. And then this part right here takes the errors and the standard output and puts it in there. So when a command runs, it can produce two streams of output. One of them is standard output and the other one is standard error. We want both of them to go poof. Now, if you're running a command that you actually want to see the output, well, then instead of sending it to dev null, use exactly the same command and then put a path to a real file. So in this case, I could put a path here where I could put home, where dev is, and then I could put Joe, and then I could put the name of the file would be like, I don't know, backup.log, and it will appear in there, and then I'll be able to read that. And then it will also put both errors and the standard output in there as well. So that's something important to keep in mind. So this is it. Now if I take this script and if I throw it into Cron Weekly, and we're going to assume here that, like I've put in the notes, that the backup destination drive is available all the time. So it can't be done with an external drive because it might be unplugged. It would have to be a drive that's hooked up to the system permanently or over like an NFS share on a network, something like that, for you to be able to get to it. But that's how you would do it right there. Or you could also use SSHFS, which would be a really good candidate for that. You could do that over a network, and then you could have that mounted up at start. Whatever works for you. I didn't want to hit Q. What did I hit Q for? No, what I want to do is I want to exit. And no, I'm not going to save any changes. Thank you. Okay, so here's one that I actually wrote for myself because I got to thinking about this and I went, I could throw this into the monthly or the weekly folder, and then I wouldn't have to worry about doing this. Now, with your ext4 drives in your computers, if you have spinning drives, you may once in a while want to defragment them, especially if you have large files, if you have like video files, virtual machines, stuff like that, or if you're just like fanatical about keeping your system all defragmented, then you might want to run E4 defrag every now and again. You don't have to because it's not really that big a deal in ext4 and Linux, not like in Windows. But I'm a little crazy about that, so I thought, hey, I'm going to write me a script to do this, and then I can put it in all my computers, and it will just take care of it in the background. So my script looks like this, and it's really quite simple. I just do E4 defrag, and then I do home, and then I put exit down here. You don't have to put exit in your scripts, but it's kind of a nice little touch at the end. It just means that it's going to exit that process gracefully if your command runs properly. Now, ordinarily, they exit on their own, but I like to kind of put that at the end of some scripts that I'm going to use. It's just a little extra touch. So we have pretty much the same thing here. We have set E, which means that if there's any error in any of this code, or if for some reason it can't run, it just won't run the script. And so what it's going to do is it'll do E4 defrag, and then it is going to defragment the system directory, which is represented by a slash, and then it'll defragment the home directory, which on 2 of my machines is in a separate partition or on a separate drive. So for the one machine that I'm going to send this to that only has one great big happy root partition, I'll take this part of the command out before I send it over there. So we have our script written. Once again, we've taken all of the output from E4 defrag. We're going to dump it into dev null, which is where we want it to go. And then the script runs. This is it. Now, how do I get it over to where it can be useful? Well, once you write your script, the first thing that you're going to want to do, you get your script looking pretty like that, is you're going to want to make it executable. So this is already where we want it to be, but I can do it again. So we'll do plus X, and then we'll do defrag is the name of the file, and there we go. One thing to note here, this is very important. If you write a script and then you put a .sh on the end, it's not going to work in Anacron. There should be no .anything in a file name for Anacron. The only thing that's allowed are regular numbers and letters and hyphens. So if you put a dot in there anywhere, it just won't run. And that kind of goes against what we're used to normally with scripts, because usually with a script, if it's got dot, it doesn't care if it's got .sh on the end, but that's something to keep in mind. Once I have set my permissions, the only thing I got to do is put it into one of those folders that we looked at. So how often do I want to defragment my machine? I think in the case of this particular machine that I'm on right now, I want to do it once a week, because I do a lot of video work and I do a lot of virtual stuff with virtual machines, and those files are huge and they get fragmented. So let's go ahead and throw this into, we'll do it Cron Weekly. How's that? So the command to do that would be sudo. We have to do this at the root as the root user, because we are moving this to a part of the file system that we ordinarily wouldn't have access to. So we're going to move this file, and the one we're going to move is defrag. Oh, well, it would help to put move in there. Get talking and then forget what to type. So sudo move defrag, and we want to put it in etc. And then we're going to put it in cron.weekly, and then just turn it loose. Turn it loose by pressing enter. Now that is in there. So when I restart this machine, it's going to go ahead and defrag the hard drives. So there you go, gang. And then I'm going to actually make a copy of that script and put it on some of my other machines as well. That'll be pretty cool. That's how I'm going to apply this, and probably on the other machines I'll have it just do it monthly, because I don't do as much work on those machines. But that way I'll never have to defrag them manually. So as you can see, you can come up with all kinds of different things to do with Anacron, whatever you got going. Just remember the main points. It has to be compatible with the sh shell, not bash. You have to make sure that there is no output that would ordinarily be shown on the screen, so use the dev null redirector. And also make sure that you have these things set with set E at the beginning of the script. If there's any error, if there's anything wrong, it will just dump it, and the process will not hang up in the background. You really don't want that to do that. And that's it. So all you got to do is come up with whatever idea it is that you want your machine to do automatically in the background and throw it in there. And I wish you the best of luck, and thank you for watching. And if you want to learn more about Linux, check out easylinux.com, and you can have a link there that'll get you to my contact page, where you can contact me if you'd like me to help you with something, or if you'd like me to help you work through an install. Also, check out Easy Linux on Facebook. We got a big discussion going on there all the time these days. And check out freedompenguin.com for lots of cool stories about Linux from contributors like myself. We'll do it again soon. Thanks for watching.